Two, 1, 2, check one. Hey there, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of True North Sports Talk podcast. As you could tell, Peter Barclay here, and we are recording this that it will air on Wednesday, May 27th. To my left, as usual, we have the Blue Jays game going on right now. We've had some troubling news out of that game as Jays fans already. We'll get to that later on in the show. We have a packed episode for you. I apologize for last week. We had a week off in our episodes. That was not something that I expected. And so, yeah, we've got a packed show for you today. We're going to talk about where we're at with the NHL playoffs. We're going to talk about where we're at with the NBA playoffs, as both of those leagues are now in the conference finals. So that's one step before either the Larry O'Brien finals or the Stanley Cup finals. And so, yeah, we're at very critical stages. We're going to talk about and give updates on Blue Jays injuries. And then our final segment will be a much more somber time during the show, as we will be talking about and remembering a young man who I watched become an icon in the world of NASCAR, and that is the tragic passing this past week. And we've talked about this on our shorts all week, so you will know kind of what I'm going to here, but the passing of Kyle Busch. So, we built this episode around what you guys are hopefully interested in, what you're looking for. We have the conference finals dramas, injury timelines, things that could make or break seasons, and we're going to have heartfelt tribute to a legend. And so, yeah, let's just dive right in to the NHL playoffs to start here. And so the 2026 playoffs, they are, for the most part, unless it was the early Colorado-Carolina series, pretty much delivering what you would hope for. The defending Stanley Cup champions missed the playoffs this year for the first time in probably 6 years. And so we are assured of one thing. We will have a new Stanley Cup champion this year. We're now at the conference finals, as we mentioned. In the East, you have Montreal, who are 7-game series battle tested. You have the Carolina Hurricanes that went 8-0 to get here. In game one of that series, we'll get to that in a little bit, but Montreal kind of had the momentum coming off another game seven and handed Carolina finally their first loss, and it was a 6-2 margin in that one. Carolina answered in game two. It was what you would more expect from this series. It was a much tighter game. We just had a home run given up by the Blue Jays here. And so that game went to overtime with a 3-2 victory for Carolina on a goal from Nick Ehlers. This matchup is pretty fascinating. Montreal was the third seed in the Atlantic Division. They've been a bit of what you might call a Cinderella story throughout all of this. They knocked out Tampa Bay in 7. They beat a strong Buffalo team, which was the other side of the Cinderella story in the playoffs this year. No one expected Buffalo to even make the playoffs, much less make any noise. And they beat them in 7, 4-3. And so they're kind of playing with house money here. They are able to just, I know there's a lot of pressure. Montreal gets super hyped in that building, but they really made it to a place that maybe only they thought that they would get to. So there should be no pressure. They should feel no pressure to play loose, play easy, play your game. You can beat this Carolina team. You've shown that. The only thing is, though, these guys aren't going to roll over and just give it to you. But you should feel no pressure being where you are. You're the only Canadian team left, though, and so you have the entire nation behind you. Carolina, on the other hand, they were the Metropolitan winners. They swept Philadelphia in the first round. No, that was the second round. Who did Vegas have in the first round? Or not Vegas, Carolina. Philadelphia. I can't bring it out. Sorry, guys. Philadelphia was second round because they played Pittsburgh first round. Who did Carolina play in the first round? They just ran roughshod over them. Ottawa. There it is. I knew it was someone. So, to get to where Carolina is, they swept Ottawa out of the playoffs. They swept Philadelphia out of the playoffs. On paper, and you never play these games on paper for a reason, they look like the more complete team. They've had elite goaltending and defensive structure, which you would expect from a Rod Brind'Amour team. I guess y'all are looking for a lot of the Canadiens versus Hurricanes predictions. You know, around here at True North Sports Talk, we don't like predictions. People are looking for and considering Cinderella run of 2026. It's an underdog story. Martin St. Louis has kind of always had that type of chip on his shoulder throughout his career, even as a coach. And so up here in Canada, for short, because this is our only team left, it's got us searching for it. Now, out west, that conference finals has some in these parts, being southwestern Ontario, a little bit in a tizzy, simply because there is one Mitchell Marner on the Vegas Golden Knights, and the fact that he is playing the way he is has some Leaf fans a little bit annoyed. They are leading Colorado 2-0. I would say this is very surprising, as a friend of mine asked me, who's gonna really stop Colorado for the Cup? And I was like, the only team I could see is Carolina. And now here they are down 2-0 to the Vegas Golden Knights. That Vegas team is rolling. They took down Anaheim in the second round. They took down, I want to say Dallas. No. Yeah, Dallas in the first round, maybe. And Colorado had Minnesota, and they had the LA Kings. So this feels like it is a very much heavyweight clash. You have two teams that both have Stanley Cup pedigree, both as an organization and with the players on the ice. Vegas's goaltending and speed have been basically the difference so far. So what are the fans looking for on this? Is that can Montreal pull off another upset and reach the finals? They haven't done that since the Carey Price era, and they haven't won a cup since being the last Canadian team to win it in 1993. So, will we see Canada in the finals? Toronto missed the playoffs this year. Edmonton bowed out to Anaheim. Ottawa bowed out to Carolina. So there's just going to be Montreal potentially left. Colorado's star power versus Vegas's experience. Some of those stars on Colorado, like a Kadri, Makar, even though he's been out, you got McKinnon. Those guys all won a cup a couple years ago, and then Vegas either the year before or the year after. And so, no matter how this turns out, this Stanley Cup final is shaping up for a massive early June in the NHL. These series are all best of 7. They're all extremely intense. Every shift matters both to the fans and to the playoffs. So, we ask you, what are your thoughts on who is going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals? Jump in the chat, leave a comment, let us know. What do you think? Do you think Montreal is able to make it to the Stanley Cup Final? Is Carolina unstoppable? Does Vegas have what it takes to run the table to the Cup? Or is Colorado about to start an epic comeback? Let us know what you guys think. Hit us up in the comments. And we will respond if we receive anything that way. All right. So, now what? Well, now we talk about the conference finals in the NBA. Shifting gears here, shifting sports. And we are deep into the conference finals here again. Now, in the East, we have the New York Knicks. They have a commanding 3-0 lead over the Cleveland Cavaliers. A friend of mine who lives in that vicinity will be very ecstatic about the fact that her team is up 3-0. Now, up here north of the border, we're not real big fans of the Cleveland Cavaliers, just simply because of the history there between them and our Raptors. They put our Raptors out of the playoffs this year. And around here at True North Sports Talk, we may not have talked about this a whole lot, but personally, I believe in the fundamentals of the game. Playing the game the right way. Not doing things that are outside the rules. I've always felt that way. I've always tried to play that way. And for probably 15 years now, if it goes back that far, but for a very long time, since the days in Houston, maybe even a bit with the Thunder. I have had a major beef, I guess, with the NBA in the way they officiate James Harden, but now just the way they officiate basketball in general. James Harden's step back three, I don't care how you defend it or excuse it, it is a travel every single time. Plain and simple. 1.5 steps, that's all you get. There is way too much traveling in the NBA. There is way too much palming. And I remember the days when those things were calls. You look at the footwork of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and like you go back to Dominique Wilkins and Clyde Drexler and Charles Barkley. Their footwork is exquisite, but they don't travel and break the rules. Their fundamentals are sound, but you just don't see that in today's game. You have Giannis and LeBron picking up the ball at half court and jogging to the bucket and getting fouls. Like, it just horrible for the game of basketball. So to see James Harden on the brink of elimination, to me, and I try my best not to be biased on this show, but in this particular case, it's good they're down 3-0. The series ain't over. The New York Knicks have a lot to do because the fourth game, the closeout game, doesn't matter what sport you're in, is the hardest game to win. They're one win away from their first finals, and I remember this finals because they played the San Antonio Spurs. That was back in 1999. That was Tim Duncan's first championship, I believe. New York's balance at this point, their transition game, their defensive intensity has been unstoppable. They have guys who have been there before, thinking of, even though he hasn't played all the games, but OG Anunoby, you got Brunson, you have Karl Anthony Towns. You have guys on that team that have been through this and done that. They're on a 10-game playoff winning streak at this point in time. Cleveland does have fight, but they do have injuries. The Knicks' depth is showing, and Game 4 for the Knicks is going to be critical. Can the Cavs force a Game 5 back in New York? Only time will tell. Out there in the West, we are getting the fight that we expected to get. You have the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the San Antonio Spurs. We all know which way the whistle leans in that series. And again, I was happy they got the championship last year. But it's time for the whistle to get a little more even against that team. OKC's bench basically held them in it in Game 3. The bench had 76 points. That's pretty unbelievable for most teams. Jared McCann had a big night, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and company are pushing for another finals trip. But the San Antonio Spurs are not going to go quietly behind Wembanyama. The Spurs are young, they're scrappy. I almost expect this to be a 7-game series. Some of the hot topics right now are people want to see the Knicks in the finals. They're looking at odds already for all you bettors out there. Looking at Brunson's playoff heroics, OKC's bench depth, for the bettors out there again, the Spurs upset chances. And the NBA is delivering, once again, star-driven basketball, and San Antonio has the Cinderella potential. some would argue even the Knicks are a bit of a Cinderella story as well. So, once again, jump in the chat, jump in the comments, and let's see what you guys think, or who you guys think is going to be in the NBA Finals. Is it going to be Knicks Thunder? Is it going to be Cleveland, San Antonio, Cleveland Thunder, or the Knicks and San Antonio? Let us know what you think, and we will have that conversation. All right, so switching gears to yet another sport, and this is where we have some preliminary bad news, and we're going to give some updates. So the preliminary bad news is, if you remember near the top, I said we have a Blue Jays game going on right there. In, I believe, the fourth inning, the Blue Jays, well, was it fourth or the fifth? I believe it was the fourth inning. We had the Blue Jays see some discomfort from Dylan Cease. Jose Minestrone came out, John Schneider came out, he threw some warm-up pitches, said, yeah, I'm good to go, got through the batter, and came out of the game. So Mason Fluharty took over. He's been decent except for that home run he gave up since coming into the game. And give me a moment here. Let's see if I can get a score. Just came back from a commercial. And we're not getting anything just yet. So we've lost Dylan Cease already today. And we have a new pitcher for the game. It's Johan Ramirez pitching against us. And yeah, so the next one we had was an at-bat by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He was hit by a pitch on the inside of the right elbow. Being a right-handed hitter, it came in like this. And he immediately walked into the dugout, walked down the tunnel into the back. So either he got hit in the nerve for the funny bone, or something is really wrong there. So one thing we know about Vladdy, I don't know if you remember this, but there was a time they literally tied him to the bench. So he's not coming out unless that is an extremely serious situation. So I've had the volume off on the game. I don't know if we've got any updates on either one of those players at this point. Hopefully it was just cramps for Dylan Cease, like in his calf or something, where it's from the travel or the working out or whatever, and he'll be okay for his next start. That's what we're hoping for. It did appear to be lower body, so it's not in his arm. Thank goodness for that. And no updates as yet on Vladdy. Right now they're trailing 4-1 in the bottom of the seventh. They've already won the series, having won the first two games. So yeah, we'd like to win all the games, but as Cito Gaston used to say, win every series. So they have done that so far here in this series. Hopefully they can make a late inning comeback here. We shall see. But speaking of those injuries that happened today, that is piling up on the fact that we found out this week when they did surgery on Jose Barrios' arm, they were exploring what happened with the stress fracture and what they thought were floaters in his elbow. And he ended up having Tommy John surgery. That was on May 20th. He is definitely out for the rest of this season. Maybe August, September next year. If the Blue Jays and Barrios are fortunate. That is a massive blow to a rotation that has already lost Cody Ponce for the year, who is already waiting for Max Scherzer and Shane Bieber to come back. And with what happened with Dylan Cease today, this Blue Jays rotation is in real dire straits. Depending on how the Dylan Cease thing turns out, Ross Atkins needs to get off his hands and get those fingers dancing and get some starting pitching help in here, because this is just when it rains it pours. I even named a short that this week because it just is unreal. Then we have Addison Barger. He had elbow inflammation after coming back from an ankle injury after a complete gas to home plate from right field. He's on the 10-day. He's going to resume hitting and throwing fairly soon. And we're looking at early June before he's back. Alejandro Kirk had thumb surgery. They installed some things in there to help that heal. He's being evaluated this week, and he will possibly be into some rehab games in the near future. Jimmy Garcia threw a bullpen recently. He is progressing towards hopefully an early June return that will help the bullpen out. That'll be a fresh arm and some very good closing setup man type experience that the Blue Jays have been lacking. Now, other than to say his name, I didn't want to really get into Max Scherzer too much. Just simply because, that's not good. Valenzuela just slid into second and took a minute to get up, but he gave thumbs up to the dugout. So hopefully that's not another one. But forearm tendonitis and ankle issues, he threw 30 pitches in the bullpen. They are monitoring him closely. They could really use him back in a big way. They recently placed Joe Mantiply on the 15 with knee issues. So thankfully that's not an arm thing either. They had brought up Chase Lee to replace him. And Nathan Lucas with a hamstring vertigo thing going on. He's been mashing in his rehab from what we've heard. And so right now we got anywhere between 10 and say 16 guys on the injured list. George Springer's not 100% as he is still recovering from his toe injury. Geez, I didn't even realize it, but he's batting right now. So yeah, the Blue Jays are in a real tough spot, but there are other teams out there dealing with similar things, so it's not an excuse. They still got to win the games. They still got to play the games with whoever's available. But this is just an unusual thing in Blue Jay land. So, what are the searches surrounding this? Well, people are looking at injury updates, obviously trying to find out information almost daily on these guys. Timelines for Berrios' Tommy John, Barger's return date. How in the world are we going to fix this rotation problem that we have right now? And despite this, though, the team is staying pretty competitive. They have Trey Savage, who returned recently. That was a shot in the arm. He's been showing promise. If he could play the Yankees every day and do what he did the other day, that would be great. Pinango has been a real bright spot from the farm system. There's going to be some real serious questions about who gets sent down when guys like Lucas return. Is Davis Schneider the odd man out? What are they going to do with Miles Straw, who made a real heady base running play the other night in taking third on a bunt attempt that was a ball? And so, yeah, there's some bright spots, but what moves do you guys think the front office should be making either at the deadline or before the deadline? Do they buy low on pitching, call up more of their youth? Jump into the chat, into the comment section. Again, let us know what you guys think. This injury run that they've been on has been tough. It's a long season. Shout out to the fans for sticking with the team at Skydome. This is what the True North support shows to the rest of the league. This is Canada's team, and we are on board, especially after how they had a late season run last year. We want to be there for when it happens again this year. All right, give me a moment before we start this next part. Okay, so this last segment before the closing is a far more somber one. It is difficult. We lost a true legend, or who was becoming a legend in the sport of racing. His brother Kurt, some of his other family members. This was a racing family. But we are talking about Kyle Busch. In my family, he's known as the M&M Man, as his cars often were sponsored by M&Ms. Kyle Busch was a two-time NASCAR Series champion in the Cup Series. He passed away at age 41. It started out, they call it a sudden illness, but it started out as a cold and sinus issue. I remember him being on the radio, I believe it was May 10th. I happened to be watching that race, and they mentioned on the broadcast that he had asked to make sure they had a shot ready for him because of the dehydration and things that were going on during the race in regard to his sinus issue. That cold and sinus turned into pneumonia, and while he was in the simulator, it was discovered that that pneumonia had progressed into sepsis. Now, we talked about what sepsis was on Saturday Night's Short. So if you would like to get maybe a fuller explanation, it is there. But basically, it is just your immune system being in hyperdrive, causing damage to your bodily organs and causing them to shut down. It tries to save you but kills you in the process. That's more or less what happens with sepsis. He leaves behind a legendary legacy. 63 Cup wins. In the Xfinity, which used to be the Busch Series, so it's like the Tier 2, he was dominant in that series as well. He also, believe it or not, found time to race in the Truck Series in NASCAR. He had a fiery personality. He had that thing that winners have. He was one of the more polarizing, albeit respected, drivers on the circuit. We've had tributes pour in from the likes of Dale Earnhardt Jr., Denny Hamlin, and basically the entire NASCAR community. Memorials for Kyle are growing at tracks like Las Vegas, Charlotte. I believe they're racing in Charlotte tonight. Richard Childress Racing is reserving his number 8 car, so it is temporarily retired. He has a son named Brexton that if he ever decides to get that far in racing, then that car would be reserved for him. Busch was survived by his wife Samantha and the children they had together. This is, as you can hopefully tell, a huge loss for the sport of NASCAR and motorsport in general. Kyle was intense, supremely talented, and more often than not, you would hear him described as authentic. He pushed the sport forward. And today we remember Rowdy not just for the wins, but for the passion and the drive that he brought to every lap. He did a lot of work in the community. And in our hearts, we will have a moment of silence for him and his family. Now, I checked on this earlier, and as often happens in the face of tragedy, NASCAR will continue to race this weekend. If I saw the time right, the race starts at 6 p.m. tonight. If I remember correctly, the Coca-Cola 600 usually is a night race. And you can imagine that he will be heavily honored at the track tonight. He has earned it. This is one of those gone too soons. And Kyle, wherever you are, we will remember. All right, deep breath. This wraps up our episode for today. Let's take one last check at the game. Still 4-1, top of the 8th. Braden Fisher pitching. So, that's it for another episode of True North Sports Talk. Huge thanks for tuning in, for participating in the chat, letting us know what you think in the NHL conference finals, the NBA conference finals. Let us know what you think Ross Atkins should be doing right now as the general manager of the Blue Jays. Whether you're in Ontario, all of Canada, all of North America, appreciate you turning in. Or anywhere that True North fans gather together. Big games ahead in the NHL, NBA. Keep an eye on those. We'll be back to cover some of those things as they happen. Let's keep praying that the Jays get healthy real soon. And remember the legends who made sports great. As always, drop your chats or drop your takes in the chat or in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that we can continue bringing you these episodes. Don't forget to join us next time as we will have another episode for you on the world of sports. Stay safe, support your teams. And on that note, we'll talk soon. See you next time.